As you all know by now, Rugrats had many deep dark secrets tucked away that they had to get rid of last minute, such as the original intended finale, the early versions of Search for Reptar, and Simpsons vs. Rugrats and all the dark and evil based on it and that animation with evil Lou to tie in. Well, I'm sure you all know about the movie and how that movie not only is what ended the series spiritually, but it was also very strange and oddly depressing and dark and gritty and just overall had many strange sequences for the series that doesn't fit. Well, the reason for this is that originally when they were told that they were going to make a movie that they didn't want to make, the script, of course, was going to be much, much more dark and violent. And it was going to tie in all these scrapped ideas that we saw in these other scrapped ideas and put it all together in one big epic climax of a movie. Not only that, but they had a tie-in sponsor with Nintendo, possibly because they were gonna make the real version of Search for Reptar they wanted to on the N64, or maybe it was for other upcoming games that they had planned that they expect to be real busters, as there wasn't a tie-in movie game that released with the actual final version of the movie that we all know. And they made a promo with the movie, advertising it, using their characters. It was very reminiscent of the VHS tapes you would get from Nintendo Power at the time, or other companies promoting the games. And it was very well made. There was a live action, nicely comfy 90s movie theater and animated over it. They had a character hosting it, Nintendo's own character, Wolf O'Donnell of all characters. You see, the joke is that since he wasn't a protagonist, he reluctantly could do the hosting. Yes, he was very bitter about it, but it was all in good fun. And just maybe Wolf was meant to be in the original Smash Brothers, but we just never knew. Possibly he was taken out because of this very promo, as you'll see. Anyway, Wolf was in the lobby talking about the upcoming movie and getting provisions from the concession stand, and he was like, let's go see the movie, and he went down the aisle and handed in his ticket, and then he entered the theater, and so they started showing clips of the movie, and in between there would be a cutback with Wolf doing something, and then they would show more clips of said movie. The movie started off as a dramatic trailer type of sorts, and all the babies were talking, and how everything was going apart, and how Angelica and their grandpa have become corrupted, and they gotta fight them, and Dad is acting weird stew, and I remember specifically that Lil was standing there, and she was covered in full of bullet wounds, and she was like, how are we going to go stop them all by ourselves? And after those flashing trailer moments were done, it cut back to Wolf sitting down, and he was stuffing his fucking face with a bunch of food and popcorn and nachos and hot dogs and the like, the soda, that kind of stuff. And then after that, he gruffed, he was like nodding his head, he's like, and he was probing them to play the next scenes. And this time, instead of like trailer clips, they were just actual scenes. The dramatic fight scenes of the movie. The first one tied into the cut storyboard jam that was part of the original intended finale, so we're going to redo it here. And it started with Stu approaching Dee Dee and starting stuff, and he began to fight with her, and a dramatic battle ensued that was very martial arts movie-like, where Stu dropkicked Dee Dee, and she went flying, and you could see the wires hanging onto her to make her do that as she crashed into the refrigerator. The animation style, by the way, was like a blend of real life and the dark grittiness, in the final movie. They fought like this for a while, Stu having a deranged smile on his face and taunting her, and Dee being like, Stu! Dr. Lipschitz says this isn't good, and he pierced Stu in the eyes, and he screamed, and hyper-realistic blood started pouring out from them, and you could overhear that asshole again, Yagami, laughing over it as he appeared in the scene in the original finale, which meant that he was going to play a role in the movie, this odd little crossover. And the two fought for a while, until they were interrupted by a loud sprout and the screen shaking. However, it ended there. It then went to another skit with Wolf, and a phone next to him rang, and he picked it up and said hello. And on the other end was a cat, a live-action actor-suited cat with a broken arm for some reason, who then started speaking in French into the phone and yelling a bunch of obscenities, and Wolf got very angry and began shouting back at him in Spanish for some reason. The next scene began. It was in the Pickles house again, but this time it was corrupted Angelica and Evil Lou, already in these forms with no context of how to get into them yet. And those two began fighting all Dragon Ball Z style and zooming and flying around, and Evil Lou yelling and trying to punch her like, Sprout, the fudgy thingamings, and Corrupted Angelica's just laughing, and A posing in the air knife and animating all like, and showing her big grin teeth, and it was very destructive, and the house was being torn apart. It then went back to Wolf after this, and he said that we have another special guest from Nintendo to talk about this, and it cut back to the lobby, and Charizard from Digimon was there, and he began talking with a microphone, and he had a bow tie on and was smiling, looked very nice. It made sense, as Pokemon was just coming to the West at this point, and blowing off spectacularly, as you all know, so of course they would want to tie this in to help double-cross promote everything, and Charizard began to speak roaring about whatever it was, but then Suicune from the upcoming in Japan then recently shown beta footage of the Shin Megami Tensei Silver and Gold, or Gold and Silver Crystal, and Suicune, they approached Charizard from behind, Charizard not noticing, and then Suicune took their snout and gently started moving it closer and up towards Charizard's big fucking cake. And then Suicune began to penetrate and insert the snout deep into Charizard's fat, sexy ass, and Charizard then began shocked and roared and started flailing around and all that, and he could no longer do the reports, and it cut back to Wolf staring awkwardly, and then he told him to just roll the darn fucking clip, and then went back, and this time was a scene that was the most reminiscent of an actual clip in the final movie, of the babies driving in the Reptar wagon with no stupid fucking idiot Dill there to ruin everything, and they began driving around really recklessly and destructively, and driving off a bridge and into the woods, tumbling down a hill, and there were explosions going off as enemies attacking them, and rocket launchers flying towards them, and bursting everything, blowing it up, and as it was going on, Phil was going like, oh, this is real fucked up, and Phil, as they were driving in and shooting back and killing people, and they eventually got pulled off the Reptar wagon and were assaulted by other enemies and creatures of the woods, and the monkeys, and they started attacking Phil, and as they were pounding Phil and mainly ganging up on him for some reason, I'm sure the full movie will have explained it. As they were hitting him, Phil just kept on repeating and getting more loud and intense of real fucked up and real fucked up, and then Lil pointed out, and she's like, Tommy, now the big shoes are coming, and Phil is like, oh, our eyes are stupid little babies are real fucked up, and after enough, the clip showing ended, and it went back to Wolf, and he was going to introduce yet another guest. This one, more of a surprise. And this one, believe it or not, was to tie into Simpsons versus Rugrats. So I wanted to get that game in through, and maybe somehow, just somehow, they were going to fit into an N64 cartridge, and it would be like Resident Evil 2's port, and Nintendo could brag how they're the only ones that released it, and you're not going to get this on Saturn or PlayStation, and, it cut back to the lobby, and of all characters to represent this, it was Gumbly, aka Greggle Simpson, and he started talking to the camera. However, this is when things started to get really weird and messed up and corrupted and cursed, as if we're not supposed to be seeing this, and I couldn't understand Greggle at all after a while because it got so distorted and fucked up that, you could barely hear him, and it was inaudible, and stags started appearing everywhere, and the screen was moving around, it was all fuzzy, as if the worst camera quality was cutting off, and it went black for about 10.3 seconds, but then it started showing a clip from the movie again, and this time, it appeared to be the big climactic fight. You see, Dee Dee was on the bridge that's at the finale of the normal movie, and I saw her get in a race stance, and she was like, Iori, you got me! And Iori from the King of Fighters appeared and approached her and started laughing smugly and scoff and started talking about Dee Dee, get revenge on her. However, just about it seems like they're about to possibly engage. Evil Lou showed up and did the raging demon on Dee Dee. She screamed and fell over, and Evil Lou looked at Iori, and the two began fighting, and Evil Lou knows the time. He's like, it'll take you 15 millennia to get up to my level, and Iori wasn't winning at all. However, he then started going crazy, and he began to turn to his evil form, and oh boy, Orochi Iori Yagami, with his blank eyes, started hollowing and fighting Evil Lou. This massive red-purple aura escaping from the both, and it eventually got so powerful, and they were so loud and howling so loud that speakers in my ears could barely take it, and I could see blood flying everywhere, and it got to the point where the screen itself started tearing, and the movie failed. It could not keep up with them. Their power was breaking the fourth wall, and it was amazing. However, it was then here where things got way too fucked up and far, to the point where I almost knew for sure that this was something that nobody was ever meant to see before, and the tape itself had to stop it. It went back to yet another skit of Wolf, possibly to wrap up the promo. However, the scene it immediately caught on was just Wolf on the seats in the theater, having mad, intense sex with Leon, also from the Star Wolf team. And they're all like, oh, yeah, 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 and you could see Wolf's big fucking sexy ass fucking asshole raping Leon, and, he was loving it though, and his tongue was flying everywhere, and he was like, yes, you are worthy of the great Leon, and cum started fucking shooting everywhere, and Leon said it tasted delicious as he licked it with his long-ass chameleon tongue, and at this point, it started getting corrupted again, immediately, like with Greggle, and Then the video just completely cut off and stopped and went to black. If you're wondering for an explanation, I have none. Of course, this crossover event and original script and everything, and even plans for video games were quickly canned, and this promo shows the results of this. I don't know why all of this has happened, and why all of this had to happen, but these silly cartoon and games, they've made me think, and they've made me cry.